And now to my final topic. In northern Nigeria, the Coalition Voices for Inclusion and Equity, or VIEW, is shedding light on the critical need for responsible leadership in addressing gender-based violence in conflict-ridden areas. Their stance is clear. True leadership is defined by responsibility, not position. This principle, they argue, is essential for addressing the escalating violence that women in these regions face on a daily basis. VIEW faces significant obstacles in pushing for protective policies for women in the region, and according to the coalition, entrenched political interests and lack of empathy from leaders create barriers to real change. Cases like that of Hamdia Sidi, who was allegedly arrested and later attacked for questioning local leaders on their response to violence against women, highlight a troubling trend of silencing those who speak out. Viewers called on state leaders to focus on security reforms that genuinely protect women. I'm glad to say that Mariam Uwais, businesswoman, lawyer, human rights activist and VIEW member, joins me now from Abuja for more on this. Mariam Uwais, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on Channels Business Global today. Thank you so much for joining me, particularly on such an important talking point. Lots of our viewers may not even be familiar with the name Hamdia Sidi. So before we get into the details of the VIEW's open letter, which I received earlier this week, which is why we're having this conversation, could you please give us an understanding of what happened to her and what has led to this coalition of pretty powerful northern women coming together to talk about leadership?
Yeah, so thank you for having me and grateful for this opportunity. What happened was we saw a video of a young girl, obviously in the rural areas, saying that the leaders should have some empathy, and that there's this girl, Hamdia, who had spoken out and called out the governor for the challenges they were having in Sokoto State. And she identified herself. This is where she lived, and bandits had been to the village near her and had, burnt up some homes and shot some people, and that Hamdia had now been arrested for calling out the governor, of course. So we now saw the videos that Hamdia had released, and she was actually emphasizing on the fact that she was encouraging them to go to school in the community. She was with a lot of other people in the village, and she was asking them to affirm or not whether this had happened in their village, and they did. She said the bandits had attacked them for at least 10 occasions, and that they all voted for the leaders in the state, and that ever since these attacks started, she asked them, has one leader, and she wasn't just talking about the governor then, she was saying even the members of the House of Assembly, any commissioner, has anybody been to empathize or to give them palliatives or anything, at least to indicate that they were aware that this was happening? And they all said no.
We've got to be careful because we do not have an account from the Sokoto state governor or Sokoto here.
Yes.
But of course, I know I'm speaking to a very credible, reputable lady, and you're representing a very powerful group of women. I don't want to cut you, but of course, this has led to the VIEW once again collating together. And I do want to talk about the letter that you composed and compiled after speaking to Hamdia, because this is what I want us to talk about, which is about leadership and the fact that you say true leadership is about responsibility, not position. And I want you to talk to how this applies to tackling gender-based violence, and not just in northern Nigeria. You read a lot of news. You know that we have issues with gender-based violence here where I'm sitting in London. So talk to me about the broader context, if you can, to avoid any trouble.
Yeah, so, okay. I'd like to say also that Hamdia was fair. At least when she was talking to me, she mentioned that there was a policeman that was really kind and empathetic and told her where to stay and all of that. But the the challenge we have is there's so much going on in the rural areas that, I mean, unless we have feedback, we have monitors out there or people who can advise or paralegals. We don't have enough paralegals in the communities, enough trained paralegals, people who can also counsel, therapists and all of that. We don't have enough of them. But it was just because of this social media video that this thing came to us. And unfortunately, there are many, many things happening that are atrocious in the communities. And all we intended to do, or what we intend to do, is to see how we can support these girls. Because Hamdia does not seem to have that much of an education. I don't think she went to university, and yet I watched her in the videos talking to these women and these children, and she was like, she obviously had leadership qualities that were innate, talking to them and they were listening to her. And so we were very impressed and felt that she needed to be safe. She said to me that she was in hiding at that point. She was being treated from her hideout. And this is where we are. We decided that, look, it's not right that this should be happening just because people are frustrated and they feel helpless. They turn to these methods to draw attention and to be able to, invite empathy from the leaders. I think that was the entire purpose, to try and attract the empathy of people in the community and in the public generally.
Of course, we know that,
Yes.
know, your open letter has gone far and wide, and we're talking about it here thousands of miles away in London. The Channel's Business Global platform is an absolute advocate for women in leadership across all levels, including the leadership you said Hamdia displayed when she was speaking and comforting women and children with very little education. Now her name is across the world because of VIEW. Thank you so much, Mariam Ouais, who of course is a businesswoman, lawyer, human rights activist, and she wears many, many hats underneath that hat. Thank you so much for your time. And we will be following Hadia's story. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.